Hello and welcome to the next episode of Let's Get Real podcast. My name is Ned.
And Lisa.
Thank you for joining us today. Our topic today, we've chosen discernment. Discernment on the spiritual path. So if you were to judge my level of discernment by my choice of partner, I would be a master.
Same, flame.
Yeah. You're such a great pick to my life.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It was a divine experience meeting you.
Did I pick you or did you pick me?
We picked each other.
We picked each other.
We had a higher discernment. Our higher selves had great discernment.
Sure, yeah. But anyways, when it comes to the topic of discernment, I think it's an important topic on the spiritual path and just even the path of life. I'm reminded of the time I bought my first house and I was doing renovations. And so I was ripping it to the house to shreds, and I came across this old newspaper that was put into the wall. And I think that's common. People find old newspapers when they're doing
If you're lucky.
demos. Yeah. So I thought I read the newspaper, and it was so interesting because the news was, Joan had 3 visitors come from Kingston, or her sister came from Kingston, and they played euchre late into the night. And I'm just laughing because that's what was newsworthy. But, and as I read through the rest of the paper, it was interesting to me. There was such a contrast between the news and media then and what it's like now. And I think that's a topic that we can certainly insert some discernment into, as far as when it comes to media and social media. And
I feel like it is the biggest topic in that when we're talking about discernment.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't know many people that haven't had a conversation about this.
Yeah, I think it is a really popular conversation, because the difference back then is that you'd get your paper and you would take in the local news, whereas now the news in media is constantly right in the palm of our hand. And I think there's a certain amount of information that we're taking in that could be false. It could be slanted towards moving agendas for people to, at the end, make money. Money is sort of I think one of the bigger motivators of what pushes the media.
I am excited that this has come to the forefront more so in the last 2 or 3 years. We know why, or that period of time that happened to the whole world. But I think more people are of that opinion than ever. But that's exciting because that means people are waking up.
Mm-hmm. And that's just it. To further that awakening, I think we have to become, masters of discernment on what it is that we're taking in. So let's define discernment. I know you were talking earlier about how you define discernment. So how would you define that?
Well, it's the difference between knowing truth and falsehood. I guess that is the definition of it for me.
Mm-hmm. And so that definition of knowing truth and falsehood, how do we get there? Like, what comes to mind when I say that?
Just actually asking yourself the question: how does a certain situation feel in my body?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So when we're taking in something, how does that information feel in our body? Now, discernment can be spread across, so many areas of our life. It's not just about social media and the news. Discernment, can be inserted in who we spend time with and what kind of activities we engage in, how much alcohol do we consume. There's so many areas.
You can apply it to absolutely everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and relationships, including the relationship with ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. That's probably the biggest one of all.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. the relationship with ourselves. So discerning whether we're having a loving, healthy, positive one, or if it's a relationship where we're constantly beating ourselves up.
And are we making choices for our highest good or the good of others, right? Because not having discernment or the maturity of discernment, it affects everyone around us.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a consciousness to that, right?
That's right. So when I think about discernment on the spiritual path, I think of it as it's this tool that helps me continue to elevate my consciousness. And so I'm always, I've talked about trajectory in several of our podcasts. And when I think about trajectory and how that impacts our spiritual path, it's a really big topic. Because maybe I'll go into it a little bit deeper. So trajectory, we have this range of potential that sits in front of us all the time. And say our highest potential is, making loving, positive choices or making purposeful choices that emulate what comes out of the soul, the information that we get, or just that inner knowing. So making choices from that inner knowing. And then the other side of our trajectory is when we make hateful or angry, negative choices, or choices that may be selfish, or choices that affect others in a negative way. So this is our range of potential. So when we apply more discernment into a loving, positive choice that goes hand in hand with our purpose, then what happens to our trajectory is it reaches further and it expands wider. So now our range of potential is so much further. So when you think of somebody who's continuously made poor life choices and they've gone down a path, and maybe that path was right for them. I'm not casting judgment.
Yeah, they might have needed those lessons.
They might have needed those lessons. So someone who's continuously made choices in their trajectory that has not been positive and loving and productive in their life, their influence is so little. When someone comes along, they say, oh, that's just so-and-so. Nobody will maybe take them seriously. It doesn't mean that person doesn't have the divine essence running through them. Doesn't mean that they can't tap into wisdom, but that their consciousness is just at a lower place. And as we raise our consciousness, like I say, that trajectory reaches further and it widens. So it's kind of like having your network. So we're everybody's on social media. We have a network. It's our little group of friends. And as we raise our consciousness, it's like our network expands into a much bigger arena.
I just want to mention that sometimes you can look back at the pattern of your life, and if things aren't working, or if you feel like you're one of those people that have problems in every area or most areas, even any areas, that low energy or that low influence you were speaking of trajectory might have been in your parents' pattern. So you might have been influenced growing up.
Yeah, and I think that's we sometimes stop ourselves from choosing what's in our heart over the biology or the training, what we've been exposed to by our family. So we have our biology from our relatives, but we also have the psychology. So there's been many times where I would act out a habit and I actually wasn't inserting discernment into my life. I was just running on repeat.
You said it there. It's a habit either way, right? It's a habit if you don't have discernment, and it's a habit if you practice discernment and expand.
So if this is like a topic that you'd like to go a little further into, if you want to start applying discernment to your life, I think that the entry point is noticing, watching how you're responding, noticing and watching what grabs your attention, and how long are you spending involved in things that may or may not be good for your psyche or for your soul. How long are you spending diving into things that at the end of it you feel anxious?
Yeah.
So that's sort of the entry point, is the conscious awareness. The conscious awareness of how much time am I inserting into things that are good for me.
Or people.
Or people. Friends, family. You know? And so then from there, we start to back away, apply that discernment by backing away from spending so much time doing certain activities, spending so much time maybe not being kind to ourselves, or engaging with people that we know that are absolutely not right for us in our lives.
Sometimes people feel like they can't get from A to B. It's just not, there's not enough motivation in what you're saying, right? It's great information, but it's just more of a concept. What would motivate somebody who perhaps their age mates are all doing something different? I guess that would be the challenge for them.
Well, I think it comes down to live a purposeful life is a life that brings the greatest amount of joy to us. And when I think when I was not discerning of how much time I would spend doing certain things, my life was not easy. So, and it's not like my life is easy now. Like life is meant to be easy at times, difficult, extremely hard, and everything in between. But my life wasn't peaceful or joyful nearly as much as it is now. You know, I think the payoff or the reward of discernment is flowing with life and having a much more joyful experience in that process.
Life-changing for sure.
Because you know how many times I've watched friends say, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that again. I shouldn't have done that again," and we just fall back into the pattern of of our own dysfunction.
Yeah.
And what would you be doing if you were not engaged in something that's not healthy or functional in your life? I think we might be doing something more purposeful.
We all know both sides of this, right? We all know the one side for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Any concluding thoughts?
I just think, well, actually, I was diving into this morning, just practicing discernment again, because it's just something I take for granted that I feel like I know I have, but that could be an error too, right? So I was diving into it, and it felt really good to put my attention on it. It reminded me of I was thinking about when you and I got together and how there was discernment in that, because before we physically connected as a couple, something told me to stay single before that. And I also had a big death in my life, so I was grieving that. And I just had to make space for everything. It would have been so easy, especially because I was grieving the loss of somebody in my life, to stay in the relationship I was in, which was okay. It was okay, but it was just okay. It was missing some elements to it. But that was such a crucial thing, to listen to that voice of discernment. And even though it was hard, it wasn't like an easy choice. Put everything down, and then all this happened.
And I think what you're saying leads into my conclusion on discernment. So I was talking about trajectory and how we make that loving, positive choice that's purposeful, how it moves us into higher states of consciousness. And if you think about when you make a choice of something, you're standing at, say you're standing at the edge of a field, and I've shared this during talks many times, but if you're standing at the edge of a field and you just walk straight, you would end up on the other side of the field. With making a loving, positive choice, and even if it's just a little one, if you turn your head just a degree and started walking, by the time you got to the end of the field, you would be way past where you would have been. Walking straight, you'd be here. Now you're way over here. So one small choice that's rooted in consciousness can have such a tremendous impact in our lives. It can spin our life in a much different direction. And again, the entry point to become more discerning in your life is to just start watching, noticing, everything that you're engaging in. So thank you very much. I appreciate everybody that chimes in, has been watching this.
Yeah. Thanks for letting us know that you're enjoying it. We take in all the messages. We love it.
Yeah, it's meaningful for us to share some of these things and to share intimate stories about our life as well.
I just want to say to you, I can't believe I'm wearing a sweater in June. I know you can all relate to that. This is crazy.
Absolutely. Okay, have a wonderful day. Take care.